a co-regional leader for the West region with Pat Payne, who's on. Do you want to wave, Pat? Colleen hopes her 28 years of experience in the healthcare industry, especially in training and leadership, will be an asset to the West region and to Dining for Women. After she retired early from Amgen, Colleen searched for just the right organization focused on helping women behind which to throw her time and talents. When a cousin in Oregon began talking about Dining for Women and its mission and model, it all seemed exactly right. Shortly thereafter, she started the Simi Valley chapter. Colleen is married and enjoys world travel, 28 countries and counting, reading, and many outdoor activities like golf and hiking. Thank you, Colleen, for presenting Restore Hope Liberia tonight, and this is a really wonderful program, so I know you all will enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Beth Ellen, and I am delighted to talk to you tonight about, or just kind of introduce Restore Hope Liberia. I'm sorry, just the title of their organization made me feel good. And I didn't know that much about Liberia, and so I was, the things that I have heard were tough, with the Civil War. And Liberia is in West Africa, and it's on the North Atlantic. The capital is Monrovia. There's about 5 million people in Liberia. But where our organization, Restore Hope Liberia, is got their work is way up north and near the Sierra Leone border. And it's very rural, and it's literally a day's drive from Monrovia, so they're very separated. And during the rainy season, which is May to October, 6 months, they don't have paved roads, so literally it's inaccessible, and they really are quite a bit out there. And I do, the history, the recent history is quite sad for this country, because they had a crushing civil war from 1989 to 2003, and it was a lot of atrocities, child soldiers, rampant drug use to really rev up children to go and kill and rape, and women were, taken and made to be sex slaves, and it was just horrific. And because of this, and then a decade later, after the Civil War, they were at the heartbeat of the Ebola breakout. And, here in 2014 to 2016, they had to deal with Ebola. And I think about COVID and how scared we are of COVID. And Ebola has a 50% fatality rate. So I just think about what these poor people have gone through in their recent history. And they are one of the poorest nations. They're ranked 176 out of 189 as of 2019. 88% of the people live on less than $1.25 a day. And so there's been so much that has gone on in that country. Interestingly, the country was founded by freed US slaves that went back to Africa and started, founded the Republic of Liberia. So it had this hopeful future to it. But as I was reading and looking at all that has gone on, then I started seeing the resilience of the women and the strength of the women. And remember, our favorite Abigail Disney did the documentary Pray the Devil Back to Hell. It's all about how the strength of the women in Liberia protesting the Civil War and protesting until finally they ended that Civil War. And they were at the table, at the peace table, and created that. And the very first president after the Civil War was a woman, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. So I think about all that these women have been through. You know, women have it tough in Liberia. It's a hyper masculine society. Female genital cutting is very prevalent. 2/3 of the women have gone through it. 10 of the 16 tribes practice it. 66% of the women are illiterate. The mortality rate is one of the highest in the world. Rape was, you know, a weapon of their long civil war. Almost all the women have either experienced rape themselves or witnessed it. So many of the children, these young girls, were child soldiers, and now they're mothers themselves. So you look at all this and you kind of go, oh my gosh. And then you see this organization, Restore Hope Liberia. And they were giving them a $50,000 grant over the next 2 years. And what they have done, their founders are amazing people. And what they've focused on is kind of the three-legged stool of ending poverty. And what that is health, education, and economics. And our grant is working in each of these areas. One thing I didn't mention is that weaving is a really traditional craft amongst the women in Liberia. And one of the things that brings women together is weaving. And so when we look at the first leg of the stool, the healthcare, what Restore Hope Liberia is doing is they used a model from WHO, which has had rigorous scientific testing and has shown to really make a difference. And so what they are doing is using this women cooperative as kind of the catalyst, bringing women together to create interpersonal group therapy for these women that are suffering from PTSD and severe depression. And actually most of our grant is in this arena because it's about 29,000 of the 50,000 is really focused on this mental health aspect of it. We're training a number of healthcare workers to bring women together and make a big difference. Another aspect of our grant, about 20,000 of it, is on the economic part of the three-legged stool. And that is looking at microloans for looms and the supplies, instructors, because not all women have learned weaving, but those that do are finding apprentices and helping. There's instructors, there's business loans and savings loans and business, helping with business acumen so that women, once they've done their weaving, they have a way to sell. And so that's the economic part of it. And then the third part is education. And so they have, RHL is enrolling children in school, which one thing I didn't say, during the Civil War, school was so put on the back burner. And during the Ebola breakout, they didn't have school at all. So there is a big generation of children, and if you think about Ebola outbreak was 2014 to 2016, that had virtually no schooling. So Restore Hope Liberia is enrolling children in school, they're paying their fees, they're buying their uniforms and their supplies, and then they're following their progress. So all of that is just fantastic, bringing all those things together and really making a difference in these women's lives. And I found so much hope in what they're doing and the scientific approach that they're using in restoring mental health to these women who have been through so much. And then there's one last aspect, they're using photography in order to help women tell stories. And they're providing, this as not only an art form, but also in therapy. So that's another part of the mental health that I did not mention. But this organization has done great things in the past. They've got great leadership. Our first year impact is going to be directly on 94 women and girls, and indirect 360. By year 2, that ramps up to 260 directly women and girls directly impacted, and the ripple effect to 1,040. We haven't done anything in Liberia for a number of years, and I certainly applaud the grant selection committee, because as I was reading, I thought, this is fantastic. This country needs this support, and these women need this help amongst each other to get past what they've been through. So anyway, I will turn it over to, I think it's time to turn it over to Wendy, and she'll show us the video. Thank you, Wendy. Oh. Sorry, that was my timer just went up.
I live in Kolang district. I have 3 baby children. But during the war was in the camp at the time where I was born them. But their father left me. But the children and nobody to help to support.
I'm Awajala from Kolang. I have 9 living children, but 1 died in Ebola crisis. So that frustration was on me that I couldn't understand myself, because I was almost crazy going up and down. So later on, I heard that Restore of Liberia now entered in Lofa County, Kolang. So they were trying to look for people within that they can go and landscape training.
Yasa and Hawa speak of the hardships that far too many Liberian women face. The trauma of war, Ebola, and life in poverty have created an epidemic of mental ill health in Liberia. More than 40% of Liberians suffer PTSD and/or a major depressive disorder, and the majority of women and girls in Liberia have suffered sexual abuse. Their trauma is debilitating and affects not only them, but their children as well. The 14 years of civil war were brutal. Just a decade later, the worst Ebola epidemic in human history took a tremendous toll on Liberia. The health system all but collapsed, schools shut again, and the economy crashed. RHL's holistic model of integrating health, education, and economic opportunity addresses the 3 main drivers of poverty. To heal the debilitating trauma and depression endemic in Liberia, we're bringing a community-based, scalable mental health intervention to Covet. Consistent with our motto, we're integrating group therapy into the Women's Weaving Cooperative we support, a photo storytelling women's group called Covet Crescendo, and offering it to the broader community as well.
Most of our women, even up to now, when you start to talk with them, through the interview, you get to know some of their histories were terrible. Some women were raped. Some of them were forcefully taken away from their husbands. And their husbands, some of them were killed before them in their presence. Most of the women don't have men. The men born children by these women and leave them, abandon them. They are left with a burden. Some of them have 6 children, 7 children, 5 children, no support. So sometimes they don't have any way out. They are so disturbed. The depression is so heavy on them. So sometimes these women, when they come in a group, they share their experience. By coming out among their friends, doing something with their hands, where they are doing something like they're weaving. While they are weaving, they are lecturing, they are discussing among their friends. Some of them that have similar stories, sharing their experiences. It's really helping them gradually. It helps making them to try to forget about those trauma that they had during the war. So I think this is a very good opportunity if we have more support.
Our goal is to both decrease mental health disorders amongst the participants and also to increase women's social and economic empowerment through supporting existing women's groups with business skills training and resources to continue their journey of health and empowerment.
If the time is to lay down in the net, if you saw are not coming to be here, the time is to lay down in the net. For me to sleep, I could not sleep because the worry was too much on me. So now I thank God for my dad and my children.
And when we start I want to pull people together to treat up. So it helped me now. I can't think, I can't worry because I used to be worrying, just single parent, no man, woman you have, part of 8 children that you're supporting, you don't know where to go and you don't know where to end.
Hope has a multiplier effect, increasing the strength and resilience and the resolve of the Liberian people who have already been tested by war, hunger, and disease. Thank you, Dining for Women. It's because of your support that these women have the opportunity to heal from trauma and mental illness. Because of you, they can find a new way forward. Thank you for giving them hope.
So, so comments and questions. Wendy, we've got some time to discuss, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thoughts?
Nancy had a question in the chat that I don't know whether we have the answer for. How do they use these long, narrow weavings?
I did not see that anywhere, and it's funny she said that because I thought the same thing. I mean, I don't know. I did not see it in anything I read or videos.
I think they can be, oh, probably talking. Okay, I think they can be wrapped around like a belt. I mean, I have some things that look like that. I don't actually wear them much, but they're, you know, they remind me of what it looks like on those looms, and you just kind of wrap them around and tie them off.
Yeah.
Almost
And
like
they did talk about selling them in the markets and things like that. So this weaving is an income for them. The problem is most women have, you know, you're living on $1.25 a day. They don't have enough money to get a loom to buy, you know, the thread and all that and get loans. So.
So that question did actually come up, and Sandra Williams from Restore Hope Liberia emailed a response here that I just looked up. So wow. She said the women's weaving is the traditional strip weaving of West Africa, which produces a cloth of about 4 to 6 inches in width and approximately 3 yards in length. In Liberia, they call it country cloth. The name distinguishes the cloth they make from imported fabric. They sometimes sew the strips together to make a wrap or lapa, L-A-P-A, but they are not yet manufacturing any product from the cloth they weave. Restore Hope Liberia has recently connected with 2 inspiring Liberian American women who each run their own retail textile businesses, and they are both interested in purchasing the country cloth right in Monrovia. They do all of their own manufacturing in Africa and want to incorporate the cloth or more of it. They're hoping this will be a perfect marriage for them, as both the women are very interested in the empowerment, and this organization is willing to pay a fair price for the cloth. So that's nice story.
Colleen, I wondered what is happening in Liberia today with the COVID crisis. Has this impacted Restore Hope's ability to meet or to provide any service?
It has, yes, and I've got the answer to that in 1 second here. And one important factor is that RHL is one of the few humanitarian aid organizations that's still in Liberia and has a very critical. So yes, they are still there. So one of the aspects of it was home visits, with a nurse, and that is not going to happen. But importantly, RHL is continuing to pay all their staff despite the fact that they've suspended some of the activities. So that really helps in the after school tutoring and things like that. They're still supporting their staff in that way. And they are also doing direct cash transfers to families that from $10 now, it's gone up to $20 per household. And RHL has also, raised funds to supply 2 hospitals in Calhoun District and the Foya Borma Hospital, because they literally had no ventilators, no masks, no exam gloves. Pharmacy shelves were virtually empty. And so they've raised money to just get basic supplies, PPE and things like that, sanitizer, bleach, cleaning stuff, to these 2 main hospitals. So that's what they're doing for COVID-19. They're one of the few that are still there, and they're doing a lot, and importantly still paying their staff, which helps generate. So anyway, does that answer your question, Pat? So I'm curious, has anybody watched Pray the Devil Back to Hell? Wendy?
And I have been posting some of the books and films that are in the section read, what do we call it? Read, shop, read, watch, listen, that we do for every single grantee. So I posted some films and a nonfiction book and a fiction book. So check that out as well.
I think the thing that really both amazes me and encourages me and everything else, that the women, as this is a hyper masculine, misogynistic society, and it was the women that finally put an end to the Civil War, and I applaud the amazing strength and courage and resilience of these women, that they were able to do that for their country. And it kind of makes you realize, given healthcare and the leg up that they need, they could be tremendously successful. They've done so much with so little.
Leima, I think this is how you spell her name. Leima Bowie she was one of the leaders of the women's movement against the war in Liberia, and she's the one who's featured in Pray the Devil Back to Hell. And since she won a Nobel Peace Prize, there are tons of recordings of her speaking as well. So she's a good one to look up. And she's still speaking out for women that are in programs like Restore Hope.
So Linda was asking where to find that shop, read, listen. So anytime you go to the website and if you go to learn and the featured grants and then find which organization you want to look up, over here on the far right-hand side, there's the fact sheet, recipes, customs, and cuisine, and the shop, read, watch, listen. And we have also now with our Goodreads book club, we are also posting these books and more on the featured country. There is a shelf right now on our Goodreads book club for books about Liberia.
Are there more, but I haven't been on there to look at that. Wendy, are there more books than what we have?
On the website, on here, yes.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
All right, well, thank you, Colleen, and thanks everyone for your questions. If there's any more discussion about that, we can do that at the end of the presentations. Let's turn to our sustained grantee now.
So do you want me to start with a little intro to it?
Sure, if you like, or I can play the video, whichever you prefer.
No, I'll just do a quick introduction of it. So you guys, I remember this very well because when we gave our first grant to this organization, Collateral Repair Project, was 2015, and that was the first year that I started my chapter. And so I remember this was one of our early programs. And there's huge focus about education and empowerment for these refugee women that are now in Jordan. And one of the things that I think about so much is that, and rightfully so, there's so much focus on COVID and what's going on with that there's a lot of serious issues that are going on. Yemen and Syria is still having a huge refugee or crisis, and it's not in the news anymore. And so, quite frankly, giving to those areas has decreased. So I think it's fantastic that Dining for Women has stepped up to help this part of the world that is still, reeling from the war, and giving a $75,000 grant over 3 years from 2019 to 2021. It's going to have a direct impact on 3,885 women and girls, and indirectly about 26,000 family members. The big thing that is happening with our sustained grant, our additional funding, is the expansion of the program. And you'll see on the video how just the size of the program from 2 rooms to now like a 2nd floor and everything else is making a big difference. But Jordan is now taking on Iraqi, Sudan, and Yemenis refugees. And so the need is not lessened. It's only been greater. There's more refugees. And the model was definitely working. It's a very holistic approach to giving women voice, giving women empowerment, giving them education and technical and vocational training. And one of the things that I was very pleased to see with this additional grant, the support groups are now going to include men. And this is a huge step forward to reduce gender-based violence. Men have to be a part of this group so that they begin to understand the impact. And so they're using the model that's been very, very successful, and obviously the grant selection committee saw the outcomes and the success, and they're expanding this holistic support model to to service even more people, to add to their groups. So I remember this being a pretty interesting grant back in 2015, and I was glad to see it coming back, and tonight giving us a little bit more refocus to an area that desperately needs support. So I will turn it over to Wendy to show the video.
Wendy, we're looking at your email.
So much has changed since 2015. When we first got our Dining for Women grant. We were really small back then. We just had a couple of rooms in our center, and we now are on multiple floors over 2 buildings, and we have a staff of around 30 people from the local community. What was so great about the Dining for Women funding was that it allowed us to do our very first program. It allowed us to begin training women on women's leadership principles and women's rights and human rights in general. We started with just a small group of women who had demonstrated leadership skills in our community, and we trained them actively over an extended period of time, and then they became facilitators to begin expanding that training to larger numbers of women.
طرأ التغيير على حالتي النفسية، إنه أنا كنت دائما منفعلة، دائما عصبية. فدخولي هذه الدورة حسيت بتغيير جدا كبير، إنه خاصة على عائلتي، على المجتمع، التعامل مع الناس من حولي، خلاني أقدر إنه أثبت وجودي، إنه أتمكن، إنه أكتشف من قدراتي، إنه أقدر أساعد نفسي وعائلتي، إنه أكون أكثر قوية بالمجتمع، خاصة كوني امرأة وبمجتمع عربي مثل مجتمعنا.
That work is still continuing today, and those very first training workshops that we held are now a core part of our programming. We've been able to expand to do much more through advocacy activities, as well as income generation, but also really focusing on girls. CRP is really unique in Jordan because we're one of the only organizations to be working on gender-based violence with men and boys, and this is really something that grew out of our work with Dining for Women. What's different now is that we have a real need to be able to bring on quality middle management that can ensure that this core programming will be able to be maintained and will be able to continue to grow and expand and serve more people. The other big challenge is that the crisis really isn't over. The media has moved on from the Syria crisis, but it's definitely not over. We have more challenges than we've ever had as funding has moved on and as new groups like Yemenis move into Jordan and are desperate to receive help. We're just so grateful to Dining for Women for providing us funds to make sure that we're able to keep doing this really important work.
Okay. Anyone have any comments or discussion or questions about CRP?
I guess the big thing too that I did not focus enough on is how much they are helping women understand their own rights and being able to advocate for themselves. And especially as refugees, you can imagine their status is a refugee and a woman, their status is tough. And so being able to find their voice and understand and be able to advocate for themselves and show leadership was pretty cool.
Didn't we also do another grant connected with the women in Jordan through the UN or something?
Yep.
Is it related to this?
Through UNICEF.
UNICEF.
Yeah, we did it through UNICEF. It is not related, they're not tied in any way. It was two completely separate grants. And the difference is that, one of the differences is that the UNICEF grant, we're actually working in the UN refugee camps. And CRP works with urban refugees who are not living in the camps, but living within Amman, Jordan. But yes, two different projects, Laurie.
Okay.
This is Mary. And I read in the newspaper that Amman has done a fantastic job, rather Jordan, the country of Jordan through their king, in keeping COVID not being the epidemic it is in the US. And you would think it would be in the refugee camps, just a hotbed for COVID expansion. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to know.
Mm-hmm. How did they do that, Mary? Did they say in the article?
They didn't go into detail. They just mentioned that the king took steps to make sure that COVID was not a problem in the camps. He is US educated.
Mm.
He probably is a scientist.
Go figure.
Not to dig, but anyway, they didn't go into detail. They just said that Jordan took steps to make sure that COVID was not rampant in the camps. And I'm just amazed how effective an effective leader can be in a situation he has very little control on, and that they're still accepting new refugees.
Yes.
So anyway, that was just a note I thought was pertinent.
Thanks for sharing that, Mary.
Sure.
It certainly is true, Colleen, what you said, that this has not been in the headlines. I mean, even before COVID, this has not been in the headlines as it was there for a while. And yet, like Amanda Lane says, the problem is continuing. The refugees are still arriving. And, it's just unfortunate that, that's what happens as the media move on to the next crisis. And, we try to keep, whenever we do see some news or information or updates from our grantees, we try to share them so that, we all remember that these issues are still out there, and glad that we'll be supporting Collateral Repair Project, this year and next year yet. 3-year grant that started last year.
And I saw the children playing, and children are the collateral damage when all this happens. They have no control, and they bear a huge brunt of what goes on. And when you see the children smiling and running and playing, that needs, that's crucial to the people growing up peaceful and happy.
Well, and Amanda Lane was on our meeting last week, and she was talking about how they have been able to transition a lot of their programming and their activities virtually. So they're still offering an awful lot of these programs virtually. And someone asked, yeah, but do refugees have computers or laptops to be able to participate? And she said, and it's something I've heard from many other countries, even low-income countries, that that people, cell phones are very widespread, you know, even in these countries, and that many of them, you know, the refugees, most of them do have a cell phone and are able to, you know, to participate that way. So it sounds like they've done a pretty good job of transitioning, just like Dining for Women, transitioning to virtual.
I feel like it's, you know, we're always so insulating to ourselves here in the US, and our country's so big, so there's a lot of news just in our country to consume, and certainly there has been in the past couple of years. But I also feel like COVID has just made, you know, me focus just on what's right in front of me more. And it's really challenging to feel useful. And that is a big part of what drives me personally, is to feel useful, to be of use.
Yeah.
And like that Marge Piercy poem. And I think that this is a really hard time for that, because I hope that, you know, we can think of more things to do with our Dining for Women community, because I feel, even though, you know, I feel with my family, my kids, my, you know, different things, I feel like I don't know why I feel like I'm failing right now in that part of my life. And maybe it's because there isn't school for me to measure that my kids are doing better, or that, you know, there's, I don't know, but I think that if I am talking about it, I feel like probably other people are feeling this way too. And so to be of use is more important, or not more important than ever, but it's very, it's almost more critical to our personal well-being, in addition to helping women and girls around the world. So.
Yeah, I would add, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would add that a couple of things. The first is that the virus, COVID, has certainly also put a magnifying glass on inequities in our own country, big time. The percentage of people who are getting this who don't look like us, sitting right here, is much higher, right, than us, than folks in our group. And the other thing that I really appreciate about a group like ours is that you know, the COVID has made us, you know, I guess, I don't know if the word is paranoid or whatever, but we're looking inward all the time. How can I stay safe? How can my family stay safe, right? It's us, right? And Dining for Women reminds us that we need to look outward, right? We need to be very outward. We need to see what the world is doing, right? And be present, so.
I wanted to add just something, and this is a little bit off topic from DFW, but if those of you who are interested in reading Stamped, and you can connect with me on Facebook, I'll unprivate my my thing for a little bit if people want to search for my name. We have a book group reading Stamped, and there are a lot of Dining for Women members that have joined it. It's not a DFW book, it's a personal thing. So I just wanted to put that out there for people, because a lot of issues about women and girls are coming up in that.
Another thing I wanted to mention was there is urgent action that we can all take right now. Our advocacy chapter met last night, and the Congress has not as of yet included any funds for international support of the pandemic, supporting countries around the world. And this last COVID relief package that the Senate is going to be looking at when they come back from recess is probably going to be the last package. And so this is sort of our last chance to make sure that we get some U.S. support and funding in there. And many organizations, including Results, who Dining for Women partners with, are calling for like $20 billion is needed to, it's really more for the secondary effects of COVID around the world, because as resources are being diverted to COVID and as countries are being shut down and children can't get vaccinated and women can't get the proper health care when they're pregnant or when they're delivering their babies, or food supplies are cut off because markets are closed and people can't get it. I mean, there's some fairly dire predictions that are out there about the number of people who are going to go into extreme poverty. You know, we talked, Colleen talked about in Liberia with the Civil War, how children weren't able to go to school and how behind they became. The same thing is going to happen in low-income countries around the world, where children could not attend school, and not even virtually, like many of our kids did here, and for very long periods of time, and the income earning potential that's going to be lost, and how devastating that will be for families as well. So there's just, I mean, there's a whole range of devastation that can be happening in developing countries around the world, and this needs the support and the funding of the U.S. And so I'm going to put a link up here that talks about our webinar last night and the action, you know, that we're asking everyone to take to reach out to their members of Congress and urge them to include funds in there for this global response, because it truly is a global pandemic. And as we know, women and girls are one of the most vulnerable groups and affected the most during any type of crisis like this. So if you're looking for something to be useful, this is something that you literally can do fairly easily. And let me just share really quickly, because it inspired me so much. We have a member who just got involved in our advocacy chapter, attended the Results International Virtual Conference, like, you know, the following month, and ended up participating in a virtual meeting with her representative. And this representative had not typically supported, you know, funding for international development. And our member told a story about Dining for Women and the women and girls that we support. And that seemed to be the switch that just turned on that representative and got them really caring more about, you know, funding international work and foreign aid, and ended up signing on to this letter that they were asking, you know, the representatives to sign. So you really can have an impact, and it can be quite inspiring.
Wendy, is it senators that we need to call, or is it congresspersons?
Well, right now, so Congress, the House Representatives already passed their bill that they've put forth for this final COVID relief package, and there were no funds in there for international at all. The Senate are now going to be bringing up their bill and putting that together. So right now the urgent thing is senators, but at some point they're going to have to come back together, and they're going to have to figure out, you know, what they're going to do. So any and all, but the urgent thing right now is the senators, to get them, when they get back from recess, they've got to take action on this next COVID relief package, and it's got to include some money in there for international.
Join the DFW Advocacy Facebook page, and you can ask questions there. If you don't want to get really overwhelmed, you can ask questions there, and there will be some people who will help you. I'm just so excited that our members are having such great success, and Results is doing such a great job at coaching us to make such a difference. I just, very exciting, very exciting.
So, quick question, Wendy, because I would like to do something after this. Once we leave our virtual meeting, the stuff that's in the chat room goes away. So can't we also get to this through the advocacy on our homepage?
This particular link just went up. I will get it up on our advocacy page first thing in the morning. So yes, you will be able to first thing in the morning.
Maybe
you can also save the chat.
Oh, how do you do that?
Where you type the message, you can click on the ellipses and click Save Chat, or you can just copy it all into a Word doc, as Marianne suggested.
Okay, so I just did just a copy of that website, but I didn't know whether there was another way to do it. Hey, Wendy?
Yes.
I think you deserve some kudos because it's not easy to run this thing. And every time I do this, I'm like, I'm so thankful that you're the one that's creating the group chats, and you're the one that gets the video up, and you get us and you get
sort
us
of.
and you get us along. And it's stressful, but you do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, Colleen. I'm certainly not perfect, as you saw tonight with the video. Still, I swear, the things I ask the computer to do sometimes, I just don't think it listens to me. The computer's fault. But thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Very true.
Well, it's wonderful to see all of you tonight. I think that I'm going to go do something refreshing and go take a very late night swim in my community pool secretly, and just to think about things and clear my head, and you all have inspired me to do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Nice to meet people from Colorado and California and places.
All that good stuff.
Thank you. Likewise.
Hi.
It was nice seeing you, Mary.
Thank you. Nice seeing you, Pat.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Together.
Blessed be.
Soon, I hope. Good night, everyone.
Good
Good night.
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 Bye.